Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Gibson Show episode post-SI. My name's Gibson, your host, and I am joined by one of my favourite players in all of the Siege scene in Europe, Korey. Korey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. A bit low on sleep, but I'm happy to be here.
That's because you're a little bit busy. You know, we speak quite a bit, and a lot of people, they were very disappointed a while back when you announced that you were kind of taking a little step away from Tier 1. Do you want to let everybody know what you've kind of been getting up to?
Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of times I think about taking when I took the step back, and I think for the moment when I took it, it was a very good timing for me, and I think it made me realize what of a, how do I say this, good job it was. I'm going to call it good job, and what privileged position I was in. And sometimes I do regret it, and sometimes I mean quite often actually. But I think especially the last year with Wylde, Gamma, and all the people and friends I've met along the way have showed me that this is so much more than just a job, but it's really something to be passionate about.
Mm-hmm. So let's get kicked off then. The way I like to do these interviews is I always start at the start. And yours is going to be a fun tale because you've pretty much been part of competitive Siege from the very start. You know, I remember watching you coming through, and you know, you were young little Korey, and you've evolved into one of the best players in the world at what you do. So talk us through how you got into Siege and how you found yourself playing at all these events with Rogue and other teams like that.
Honestly, the way I got into Siege was so random. I remember I was going to school, and at my school, for reference, I come from a very small village. No one plays video games. I was the only one. I was always like, yeah, I'm going to play video games like anyone want to play, and no one was in it. They were playing all types of sports, and maybe someone was playing FIFA, but no one was really interested in it. But one guy, he was playing CSGO, and he told me, hey, have you seen this new like wannabe CSGO game? It came out. And I was like, yeah, I saw it. I thought it's quite interesting. The graphics look cool. Might give it a try. I've never played a shooter before. And one of my friends that I played Ark with gifted me the game. And I was horrible at the game. I was so bad at the beginning. But I liked it. I think it had something very dynamic and very special to it. Grinded it out. And I think after 2.5 years was the first time I've really tried competitive. And it was all because of Rips, basically.
That's a fun one because you hear people talking about getting into games, and a lot of people who got into competitive Siege, you know, they played Call of Duty before, or they played CSGO. They had a long background of playing shooters from the very start of their career. So Siege was your first ever competitive shooter, and you ended up making a career out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the point with Siege is, like, initially I came from Dota, and after Dota I played Ark for like 2 years or something like that. And with Siege, it's not about how mechanically skilled you are. Obviously, aim can get you away with a lot of things in this game, and aim is very important. But I'll be honest, it's always way more important what type of person, teammate, and player you are, more on a game sense point of view, I'm going to say, rather than an individual point of view, because that's going to save you in a lot of directions and in a lot of situations. And that's what kind of happened to me. I was, truth be told, at the beginning, I was friends with the right people. I got lucky, and they took me into their team because they liked me. The performance was good, and then it just kept rolling.
And then after that, you got in and you started playing competitive, and you started traveling around the world. You know, you were lucky enough that you're one of the players who have had that opportunity. When you moved into competitive Siege, was it what you expected it to be? Because there'll be a lot of people watching this who've never really played competitively, or they're currently playing in Tier 3 or Tier 2. What is playing in Tier 1 actually like whenever, you know, when it's not a hobby anymore, when it actually is your job?
I've never realized how hard it could be, and I never imagined how hard it can be. Like, you have to always remember that obviously it's a hobby and it's something we love doing. And I'm going to be honest, obviously it's better than being a construction worker, but not that it would be something bad, just it's easier because you can do it from home. But what you have to remember is you will always sit there. You're always going to have the stress of you need to perform. You need to work together with your team. You need to come to agreements with your team. You need to scrim all day, and you're going to get into arguments, into maybe even fights. And if you're 18, and I'm going to be honest with this, when I was starting, I'm not going to say toxic because that's not what I was, but I was very stubborn. And being able to take criticism, being able to play all day, and all these things, they add up quite fast, and they get very, I'm not going to say exhausting, I'm going to say tiring.
Mm-hmm. And is that because you think the age is 18? Like, a lot of players, You look at them, what they were like when they started in the scene, and as they mature, they get a little bit easier to work with. Is it solely just an age thing? Because a lot of players do, especially the ones who survive in the scene, they mature a lot over time and they have long careers. Whereas I think we've seen the players that have tons of ability, but they don't adapt. They're the ones that kind of get chewed up and spit out pretty quickly.
Oh, definitely, definitely. For me, at least, it was a age and maturity thing because when I came in, like, it was not that I really struggled with social interactions, but I kind of used gaming as like an escape way. Like I just got home and rather than, I don't know, go out and play football, I kind of played video games and it was just me, a couple of friends, and you kind of like kept to yourself. So once you get into a routine where you need to work and you need to figure out things, you need to discuss things, and you're gonna get into ugly situations, I'm gonna call it, especially at lands and when like there's pressure on the line. And I wasn't used to that. So in a lot of situations I acted kind of childish. I've had a lot of people that made me aware that I was acting childish. One of them was Rice, for example, someone I really look up to. And over the years and over the experience, I've realized as well, like, this is not the person I want to be. And it made me, in all honesty, the 4 or 5 years I've spent in esport made me mature a lot as a person. And I'm very happy about that. These are very valuable experiences.
And then looking at your tier 1 stint, what's your kind of the biggest memories that you have playing? Because you're part of that rogue team. You've seen a lot of your ex-teammates go on to have a lot of success. You've seen other ex-teammates kind of not really kick on with their careers or take a step back. For you personally, what's your favorite moments though? And that can be events or it could even be just teammates you've played with.
Oh, there are so many. I was very lucky when Giants or the Stream, whatever, or Rogue, basically the core of Rice, Hicks, Alphama, me and Aces and me, sorry. When we played, we made it to all these events and we've collected so many memories together. I remember even when I started with the German lineup, we made it to Rio immediately. Everyone was like trash talking us, was saying like, yeah, these guys are horrible. And we placed second after G2 when they were dominant. We made it to Rio, we made it to the Six Invitational. And the emotions, the crowds, the people, this is very humbling to experience. And I'm very thankful for this. But honestly, if I'd have to sum it up, one thing that gets to my head or what I remember a lot of times is the very first Six Invitational I played. While it was not very successful, we went in as underdogs and we played against Liquid and everyone was kind of talking down on us and we beat them, and it was a very, very rewarding feeling to put in all this work, even though, well, it was the only when we got that invitational, but it felt very good in the moment and I loved it. And I loved the people I was playing with. Kryan is still a very good friend of mine, same with Rips and same for the rest.
Kryan's doing pretty well as well, major champion now too, and I think he's kind of proof, along with even the likes of Virtue, that I think that the age that you stop playing esports is as long as you can keep going. People say that they're on the older side, but you see it now. Rise is still going. You've still got Crying going. Obviously, Virtue's playing at a high level. Canadian. Why do you think that the age limit has kind of increased? Because, a couple of years ago, the thought of people playing past 26, 27 at that level was probably something you wouldn't even see happening.
I think it's not that I want to say that people, for example, Virtue is individually super skilled, same with Kryan, but the individual and mechanical skill you need to have for Siege is way less than comparable to other games. And also teamwork in the current meta, and since the last couple of years, I'm going to call it, beats any team with individual gunners that doesn't want to work hard. And like I said, maturity, and the older you get, the more mature you get, and the more mature you get, the easier you are to work with, the more you want to work and the more you're willing to put in. And I think especially for people like Kryan, Rise, and I think Virtue as well, I consider Virtue very mature as well. They are aware that of their age, obviously, and they're aware this is not something they can do forever. So they give it 200%, while someone else who might be 18, 19 is very young, just finished school, doesn't mind, so he might just give 70% instead of these 200.
And something you'll notice about a lot of these people too is they look after themselves. I know Kryan's the exception. He more than looks after himself. He's an incredible Nick at the moment. But a lot of these players that have long careers, they look like they eat well, they sleep well, and I think that's something that a lot of teams are picking up on. You see the attitude in Korey. All the players are starting to look like a really good Nick. You look at G2, they've got that kind of atmosphere as well. Was that mindset around whenever you were doing your first stint in Tier 1, or was it just, yep, let's play ranked till 3 or 4 in the morning, get up, do a bit of gaming. Like, how have things changed in your perspective?
God, the beginning was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. I remember the very first bootcamp we had, Mocket flew us out to Sweden immediately when we had the EU League season. And it was Rips and me watching Netflix series sometimes till 5 in the morning, then going to bed, waking up at like 13:50 and having scrims at 14. Like we didn't care. We didn't really have anyone who was looking after us. And in Korey, or Rogue back then, we had Bernie. And honestly, I love Bernie. She takes care of the people and she makes sure people have a good sleep schedule, take care of themselves, take care of their health, I'm going to call it. And it's very important. I mean, I've only played for 5 years competitively, but I've already taken, well, debatable if the injury I've taken was because I was playing, but I have issues with my wrist that I now need to get fixed, which are super expensive and super time consuming, and something that comes from playing and from all the pressure and investment you're putting onto your wrist, basically. So it is important.
Yeah, it's something that I think you see a lot of people who get desk jobs develop over time, but as a tier 1 gamer, wrist issues seem to be something that I'd say a lot of players probably suffer with, but you might know about it. And obviously we hope you have a speedy recovery with that, because I think for the most part, time and dedication is really the only cure for something like that. And you spoke about Bernie. Bernie's going to be coming on the podcast pretty soon. She's somebody that I can't wait to speak to, because, you know, you look at the impact that she had on your team, you look at the impact that she's having on the current team. People behind the scenes have a massive impact, and I think that what we want to see is those people get recognition. Isn't that right?
Definitely. I think from all the people I've worked with, Bernie and Fenno from Gamma don't get the recognition they deserve. They are amazing people. They've both helped me a lot in developing as a character and developing as a person. And I'm very happy for that. And they're not even getting somewhat close to the attention they should get.
Well, hopefully they will, and hopefully this podcast will let people know the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. But I want to talk then about retirement. So your initial retirement came as a bit of surprise to a lot of people. I think you could tell by the reaction to that post. It was something you'd thought about for a little bit of time, but everyone in the community was shocked. Looking back, what do you make of that decision to retire? Was it the right decision for you at the time? You know, what kind of drove that desire to just take a break?
The desire to take a break and to give it up with esports has been there for a while. I'm going to be honest. I've pressured myself very quickly when I was starting, because all my friends, everyone that I was related to close to me, was starting to study, was starting to get into their life. And this sounds very dumb because it's not what it is, but at this point I saw it as I'm playing video games and this is not something secure, not something for the rest of my life. So I was always stressing myself out. And once Corona hit and we were forced to just sit at home, practice from home, it was hard for me. I felt trapped somewhat, and I was very unhappy with the situation I was in. I was only playing because there was a salary, and I wanted to take a break earlier already. But we obviously had a very bad result with Rogue, and I didn't want to end it on a bad result. I didn't want to make people think that I'm quitting because, they're doing bad. He's now giving up. It's not what I wanted to do. And I've tried, and I realized that forcing myself to play and forcing myself onto EU League and onto the team wasn't fair for the team. And it also showed in my results, like towards the end. The season I finished with wasn't horrible, but I'm going to be honest, it wasn't good either. It's not something I'm proud about. So I've taken that decision, and it was one of the hardest decisions I've taken, like giving up your secure job, your routine for the last 4 years, basically what you've done in your life for something. Uni didn't even accept me at that point. I just risked it. I was like, okay, whatever. And if not, I take a year off and work and try to find something. So it was very, very hard for me. And looking back at it, I think about it a lot of times, a lot of times, because it really moves me a lot of times. But I'm happy I took the decision. I'm happy I took the time off. And I hope it was the right decision.
I think once you make a decision, you got to kind of run with it and say that was the decision that was right. And I think speaking to you over the last couple of months that I've got to know you, I think for you at that time, it was the right decision, because you've done really well in your college studies lately. And I know that's something that you're pretty passionate about too. But a little bit into your retirement, Wylde started sniffing around. How did the move to Wild come? Because they eked you out of retirement and they made you play at a pretty high level again. You traveled to Saudi Arabia, you played at an S tier event, you played in Challenger League again. How did they convince you to step back in, or was it a case where you were ready to kind of step in at that level and you went to them first?
I approached the German-speaking roster and Wylde. I've known Wylde over Shuai, and I've approached the German-speaking roster back then of Daya, Toby, Marco, aka Gisela, Bizet. And I've approached them. I was like, "Hey guys, I know you need a fifth, and I kind of have some months left, and I might give it a try because I wasn't really completely done. Like I've had the pause, I went on vacation, but I was like, okay, I still want to play a bit beside it. And then Gamma has also hit me up at the same point. And basically, Gamma has given me a better offer, and it felt very right to play with the boys. And I love the Gamma boys, I'm going to be honest. And I've played with them. And I thought it's just something I do before uni starts. And I use it as kind of a jump for the things in between. And the Gamma boys made me realize that I'm in love with competition and that the right people around you, they make a team and they can change everything, no matter the money, no matter the results. With the right set of people around you, it's a completely different story. Not that I was unhappy with the people in Rogue, but it was a different story. It was forced work, what these people were all very passionate about, and it was a completely different climate within the team. And well, Challenger League with the Gamma Boys didn't work out. I mean, I had Leonsky on the team. I don't know what I expected, but obviously it's a joke. But shortly after that, I think around December, I hit the Wild Boys up again, and I told them that I fell in love with competing, and it's what I really want to do. And I've asked them whether they want, they have a spot and whether I can trial with them. And it was the first time I've kind of hit a team up. I think it's very ballsy to hit a team up, and also a bit weird, but it worked. And then they were already trialing Kanio on top of that. And then a bit later, a couple of months in or so, Aces has joined the roster. And then this year with Wylde was full of emotions, and looking back at it, I'm very happy on how it has been. I'm very sad on how it ended. And I'll take a big part of the blame on me for that. But overall, I think everyone treasures a lot of memories and emotions with that year, even though it wasn't a tier 1 year.
Well, you spoke about Leonsky. I think he's finally got himself a tier 1 spot. Not as a player, an analyst. I think he's going to be doing, but he's there.
He's a coach.
He's there.
Come on, man. He can't hold dirt. He gets coached. Yeah. He looks at Marco play, at Noah play, at Freck play. Come on. No, but jokes aside, obviously I'm happy for Leon. He deserves it. He really does.
Yeah, a lot of love for him, and he has been in the scene for a long time as well. So you mentioned a player that I actually want to talk about, and that's Kaneo. And I know that's not how you pronounce his name, but I think he's kind of adopted it because of the way that me and Whippet keep saying it. But he's a player that comes across to me as having his head on his shoulders. So when I first spoke to Wilds, it was ahead of You Can Rumble last year, and this was the first time we'd see that roster, and I was asking about players. And Steve was like, we've got this kid called Kaneo, and he's going to be a massive deal. He's not on the playing roster yet. He's a sub. He's there to learn and develop. And we were kind of wondering, not a lot of teams hold a 6th player. A lot of teams will have a coach or an analyst registered as the 6th player as an emergency sub. But you guys kept him on the team, and he played a couple of play days in GSA, and he impressed. I know that a lot of teams were looking to steal him away from you guys at one point, and he got his shots at Gamers 8. And again, unfortunately for BZ, I think it was, that couldn't travel. Everyone's opportunity comes at the loss of somebody else, and you feel sorry for BZ there. But what has Kaneo been like over that time? Because you spoke about young players and maturity level. Kaneo seems like he's got like a 40-year-old's mindset and like a 20-year-old crazy kid's gameplay.
There was a very long way to go. It was very rocky for Kaneo, I'll be honest. When I joined the roster, I already knew who Kaneo was. I've played, there's a German FPL thing, and I've played with him, and I remember the very first interaction I had with him. I gave him a call on Cafe, and I called it Chaiko. There's this spot by New Hedge, it's called Chaiko, and he had no clue what I was talking about. He had zero experience as a competitive player, but he destroyed the guy. He just flicked him because he's super, super gifted individually. And I wanted to when I approached Wylde, I knew they were missing 2 people. I wanted to tell them, hey, try Kaneo and me. But they were already trying Kaneo because they knew him. And at the beginning, he had a lot to learn. He wasn't... I think he's fine with me saying this. I hope. If not, sorry, Kanyo. But he at the beginning he wasn't on the level he needed to be, and this is kind of why we ran the 6-man route. We had aces coming in, and we had me with the issues of university and of time of how much will I be available. And on top of that, and that's the most important part why we went for the 6-man roster, is we didn't want to let Kaneo go. We saw a lot of potential in him. A lot of potential that still needed to be unlocked, and we had him sit there, we had him scrim with us, we had him listen, watch towards, we gave him feedback, and we kind of molded him. And I think it has went into a way that I'm very happy about. I think the improvement he has had from when I first got to know him and from who he is now is insane. I think he still has a road ahead of him, and he's still young, and sometimes he gets on my nerves. But overall, I really do like the guy, and I really think he can have a bright future once he really settles in, and once he figures out how to be more confident and how to be the player he wants to be, and once he stops speaking in an English accent. He really tilts me with that.
He does seem to have that mentor role with you, though. You know, he's when you talk to him, he always brings you up, and that'll probably embarrass him too. That I keep saying that, but you know, he brought you up a lot about the way you helped him develop his career. The one last question I have about him is Gamers 8, the play against Liquid. What was it actually like in voice comms for you guys when he pulled that off?
Oh my god, we have this meme in the team where we say it's like we say nice try before the round. Like when he's in an unwinnable situation, we say it's like nice try as a joke because we know the round is already over, or a little winnable. And I remember I was watching back at it, and I remember saying winnable, but already with a bit of a joking voice to keep the mood up. And then Kaneo wins it, and everyone is freaking out. We're just laughing. We're sitting there. We're like, boys, most of us are studying. The rest of us barely plays the game. We are a tier 3 team. We barely script. We've just lost to Berg on our bootcamp, and we come here and we beat Liquid 7-1 with a standout performance from Kaneo, clutching 1 versus 4. Like, what is going on? And it was amazing. It was a very funny and very emotional day for us.
Do you have any regrets about that event? Because in reality, looking back, you got beat by Falcons in the semi-final, and it looked on Villa like you guys were going to take that to the final and get a chance to play BDS for the prize pool. Are there any regrets there in the situation, or was it just a cool experience to go and, you know, get that LAN feeling again?
I think regrets is the wrong word. For 3 of the 5 players that attended the event, it was their first LAN, and we're very happy with the results, obviously. But the issue, and I'm gonna call it regret now, even though I didn't want to, is against Falcons, we didn't treat it like we did with the games before. The games before we treat as a gift, as something to be happy about, as something to play, and where we put our heart in and where zero pressure is on us. But against Falcons, we saw, oh my god, we can play in the final, and oh my god, this is not a T1 team, this should be easily beatable by us, and that kicked our butt. It was the wrong mindset. It was not a good game by us, and yeah, it's sad that we lost over there. I think we had a good chance on even beating BDS at that point, but, well, unlucky.
Yeah.
We learned.
I think, though, with Wylde, I always got the feeling that you guys were a better underdog than a favorite. Like, when you guys were the underdog, you performed really well. We saw it in Challenger League. We saw it over in the Gamers 8 event as well. And another player that I think is worth a mention, you know, we'll not talk about it too much because he's left, he's gone on to play Tier 1, is Gisla. That kid was probably the unsung hero of Wylde, and you'd look at his stat line, and at times you'd be like, you know, he's only got 3 or 4 kills a whole game, but that's just because the Wylde style of play was so nutty that he was either in a 1v4 clutch himself at the end of the round, or he just had nothing to do because you guys won the round in the first minute.
I love Marco. I think, like, with Marco, it's a very similar story to with Kaneo. I've met Marco when he was 16, 17, I believe. And he was always this troll guy. And I've just seen him play in ranked and seen him play just the most basic Siege. But I always was like, okay, maybe you should trial him. I told the old Orgless roster when he turned 18, I was like, hey, you should really try this guy out. You should give him a chance. And I think he has a lot of potential to be unleashed. And when he started to play with Fact and everything, it was never really the environment he needed to shine. And with us, he really got that environment. He really fit in well. And he's had, I mean, obviously before us also in Challenge League, he had a standout performance. And he's an amazing player. I love him as a person and I love him as a player, even though he's not as flashy as Kaneo as a player, but he's always there. He will always have your back. And something that he has, for example, is he's a mental pillar for any team. He's never gonna shake. He's never gonna be angry. He's never gonna be tilted, quiet, or anything. He will always be there. He will always cheer up a team, and he's an amazing teammate to have. TDT9 is very lucky to have him. Gonna be honest.
On defense, when you're playing tier 3, I always got the feeling that he was very much like leader. You know, he's playing for Navi now. That kind of on defense in a 1vx situation, you're like, there's a chance he can win this. You know, with other players, you're like, yeah, mightn't work, but players like him, you're like, until he's gone, there's always a chance in a round.
Yes.
And this is where I want to talk. This is the last bit about Wylde, is the Wylde play style. I've heard people say it's like CAG, but being played in Europe. I've heard people, you know, describe the Dunlimited play style as Wylde-like. Tell me, from your perspective of the team, what it was like playing that style of Siege, because it looked from the outside that it was just fun. Crazy, stressful, but fun.
Yes. It was very refreshing, because one approach we took onto Siege is we tried these routines, but we realized one thing we're really good at, and there a lot of credit goes to Aces, is at spotting gaps in enemy defenses. And Jay and Aces and Kaneo also are very, very aggressive players that don't mind to try things. And in general, one thing as well, just we were not scared of losing. We tried. We treated it as a game, and we treated it as something we like rather than something we're forced to play and as a job. And this resulted in a very aggressive, very on-the-fly game style that has, well, led to many teams not liking us, I'm going to be honest. But it worked, and it was fun to play. Looking back at it, it really was fun to play. It was an off-meta Siege.
Do you think you're on a couple of teams' blacklist for scrims?
A couple. We had tier 1 teams cancel us in the middle of a scrim because they were annoyed of how we play, and then cancel the next 2 weeks of scrims we had with them and blacklist us. Like, at one point, without joking, besides Heroic and BDS, no one from EU League scrimmed us, because they had us either blacklisted or just didn't want to book with us.
Is that because you were beating them?
Sometimes not even beating them, they were just annoyed. You had Jay peeking out a door with Echo in the first 30 seconds, getting a kill because we had info on him, and they I think ego plays in a lot, because it was similar when I was playing EU League, and a player I considered bad or worse swung out on me, and even he might have info, it might have been the perfect play. I might have done the same play in that situation, but it upset me. And for a lot of teams, and I think for Europe, that's been the mentality for a while, it's always easier to find an excuse than to improve. And just saying, yeah, these guys are idiots, let's blacklist them, is always easier than trying to adapt to an aggressive play style. So I think that played in.
Well, this is where I'm going to give you credit, though, because a lot of the teams that you speak to and they talk about scrims are like, yeah, we've blacklisted this team because they peak and they swing and then they don't do it in a game. Whereas you guys, that was you. You know, it was never a case where you didn't play that way. So you look back and you think, well, this is a play style that you guys run. You're not doing it to troll. It's just the way you played. So I think some teams just mightn't have liked it, but it got you a lot of success. Like, I think the Wylde story, it's one when you look back, it was a successful one. It was a great year. You traveled the world again, and you had opportunities that you'll never get. But I want to talk a bit more about you now, because it's something that I always like to do, is get to know the person behind the screen. And a lot of people will know you from your streams. A lot of people will know you from following your career. But you keep bringing up college and work. So you're studying to be an architect at the moment.
Exactly.
Is there passion there? Is that something you really enjoy doing? And what made you pick that as opposed to some of the other maybe careers people could have studied in university?
Honestly, it was very random. I leaving Rogue, I came from a job that wasn't, I'm going to call it a job, that wasn't obviously insanely paid, but it was very well paid. And I come still from a very poor family. And I wanted to do something where I am free, where I can be creative, where I can work with people, and something that's most important for me is where I can inspire people. And the money part doesn't play in too much for me anymore. It's it made me realize that money truly can't buy you happiness. And this is why I looked around for what I can do. And most of the jobs that I've looked at were either I'm gonna say boring in my opinion, or something where I don't see myself in, as they weren't creative enough for me. So I've decided to settle with architecture, and the first year was a pain in the ass, and it was not what I expected, and it was not fun as well. Now the second year it's better. It's more exhausting. It's not the usual university. I'm studying at something very, very weird in German. It's not really a university. It counts as a university degree, but it's named something different in German, and I don't think there's a translation for it. But because of that, I don't have lectures. I don't have, I don't know, 20 lectures a semester and then 20 exams. It's not how it works. For me, I basically work as an architect already, but unpaid and with not just like the things you get into your office and the contracts you get, but with so many different classes with different contexts and different topics you need to arrange. So it's very stressful and it's very hard to balance it with Siege, I'll be honest, because it's not 3 months chilled and 1 month exam. It's 4 months of working, and I didn't expect that.
Seems though that the careers you keep getting drawn into are the ones where the stress levels are high. I think you like that high-paced lifestyle though.
Yeah, it's in Wylde. Wylde was kind enough to give us a spot psychologist as well. Her name was Susan, and I remember something she said. It stuck to my head. There's always these. I'm always choosing the road where I have Siege and the career, like 2 careers at the same time. And she said people that do that not only need it to be successful, but also to be happy. And they need this stress and constant development to be happy, because otherwise it will make them bored and unhappy and feel like they're not moving forward. And it stuck to my head. I think, like, I mean, to be the last months, there were no scrims, there was just time off. And I'm not feeling like I'm not moving forward anymore, but I already miss it. I already a lot of days just procrastinate and sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, so shout out Susan for getting to the cause of it. I know a lot of people like that in my personal life too. If they're not going forward, they're standing still and they hate it. And I think you fall into that category. As an architect too, though, I'd say some of the map design and Siege, you're looking at going, oh, bro. Did the map design ever bother you before you got into architecture, or since you got into, do you look at these maps now and do things give you the kind of the ick or annoy you?
I think that not only does it apply to Siege maps, it applies to my entire life. As much as Siege was majoring me, it's the same with architecture. The way I'm looking at the world and life right now, it's something completely different. Obviously, studying architecture is very art focused and art based, something I did not expect, something I wasn't aware about, and it has changed the way I look at life a lot in every aspect.
Yeah, so speaking about your personal life then, what do you do to de-stress? Like, what are your hobbies outside of Siege, outside of, studying to be the best version of you possible? What do you do to chill out, and what do you enjoy doing?
Oh, this is a good question. One thing I really enjoy, and one thing I do overall to get to relieve from stress and to get my mind off of thinking, is I like to drive. It's something I really, really enjoy. And I think besides that, gotta be honest, I've given up most of my hobbies to play. And now with studying and playing, it's not like I can really take back a lot. But just as simple as it sounds, but being around friends, talking to them, and having a quality time is something that's very helpful and charges the battery.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Having good friends always helps. So you spoke about driving. Are you a music guy, a podcast guy, or an audiobook guy, or just radio off entirely when you're on the move?
When I'm trying to get my mind off of things, I'm just driving and listening to just the sound of driving, just the wind and everything that's going on. But when I'm normally driving, recently I've gotten into audiobooks, I have to admit. I think they're amazing. I'm a very big anime guy. So getting into audiobooks and being able to listen to something that is not out yet is very nice, very refreshing. But besides that, yeah, I think like now I need to drive every day. Every day I'm driving at least for 1 hour because I need to get to uni and get back. And yeah, it's music, audiobooks, everything at this point.
If it's a short journey for me, it's music, and if it's a long journey, it's an audiobook. I can't do like a 10-minute stint of an audiobook because you can't really get into it. But I know how you feel. So We'll wrap up the interview talking about the future. So, first off, if you get your wrist sorted and you're back to 100%, does the future involve Siege for Korey? Is Korey looking to get back into Tier 1?
Yes, I really hope so. Honestly, I have this summer semester. It's going to be my last semester before I go into my internship semester and my bachelor. Internship I can do part-time, and I think that's something I'll be able to balance with a team that is willing to balance, and the bachelor is something I'd be able to do even while playing esport full-time, because it's just my thesis. I've gotten the 2 years basically done. So I thought about this a lot, and I'm not 200% sure, because sometimes it gets stressful, and those are the days when I'm like, okay, do I really want to do this? But overall, after the Sixth Invitational and after EU's recent success at a lot of events, I remember I've told you before, and it's when I was in Berlin and I was watching Tom, I was watching Krine, I was watching Leon win. Obviously, also Kanto and Spoit, but I'm not as close to them as I am to the others, especially Krine and Leon. It brought a couple of tears to me. And I thought it was because I was happy for my friends. And obviously, I'm also happy for my friends, but realizing like the Sixth Invitational, watching EU win again, I was saddened again. And it wasn't because I'm sad EU won and I didn't want EU to win, or it wasn't either because I didn't want G2 to win. I'm very happy for them and they deserve it. But it wasn't because it's something I've worked for. It's something I committed a lot of years to, and it's a dream that I still want to achieve. And it's a dream that I gave up willingly. And the thought in the back of my head that I willingly gave up on it is a very hard pill to swallow.
Well, I think I speak for myself and all of the Seed community when I say we want you back. There's players like you are desperately needed, and I know for a fact that wherever you go to, I wish you success. You know, it's like you spoke about the Koi boys. I'm friends with Tristan. And, you know, I love Leon, the same, you know, I know him from a different reason that you would, but just seeing friends succeed and seeing people that you care about succeed, it's good to see. So hopefully we'll get to see you get some success in your career again whenever you hopefully get your wrist problems set up. And the last point is the Blast have obviously released the new competitive schedule. And we know now for a fact that there is more downtime. So we've got a couple of months off. We've removed a full stage. With it being just 2 stages as well, and thinking about it as a player who's played at the highest level and been in that environment, is that going to help Tier 1 players? You know, the fact that you are taking a little bit of the load off by removing a stage.
I think it's amazing. I think I've looked at the schedule today, and it completely, like, the off period is exactly when my off period from uni is, so it's like quite unlucky, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. But looking at it from a player's perspective and going back in time, and it's something I'd wished I'd had, because first of all, the majors are bigger. You have an off period where you're gonna have all these events again, like DreamHacks and all these publishers being able to come in and have their own events, which I think is great. And you have some time to reset in the year. And every time I think about 2019, that was the year when Rise and the Giants team, I'm going to call it, that was on the lead of Rise, we've qualified to every event possible. We've had a lot of boot camps. We've traveled from A to B for media days, for boot camps, for org changes, for everything. And it was really, really stressful. I loved it. It was one of the best years of my life, but it's something that's really hard also, in my opinion. So I'm happy that there's now an off period that you can spend with friends, family, and where you don't have to sacrifice things for esport, but where you can try and balance it.
I think things are going the right direction. They really are.
Definitely.
But Korey, it's come to the end, and this is where I'm going to say it's been a pleasure talking to you. You know, you're someone that I've spoken to quite a bit over the last year about issues I've had personally, about, you know, your own career too. So I have a lot of love for you, and I genuinely hope that we get to see you competing online again in the future. But the floor is yours. Is there anything you want to say to, you know, fans of you and your career, and what do you want to tell the community?
Honestly, first of all, likewise, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy you are someone that has entered the Siege scene and is developing and growing in the Siege scene, because I think what you're doing, these interviews, it's amazing. It's something I wish that would have been there way earlier, and something that gives a lot of insight to the people. And what I want to say to the people watching, and to the people watching and celebrating everything of esports, I love them. I'm happy. And every time I think about the career I've had and the moments I've had in my journey, I think about the people I was able to inspire and the people that I was able to move because of what I loved to do. And that's something I'm just happy about. And I hope that everyone, just as me, will enjoy the future of esport.
Thank you. And well, Korey, best of luck in all your exams, your projects, and speedy recovery for your wrist. And we'll see you soon. To the viewers at home, if you haven't, please give Korey a follow on all the socials, on Twitch as well. Help his profile grow. And it's a good way to keep up to date with everything going on in Korey's life. If you've enjoyed the podcast, make sure to give it a like and a follow as well. These going to continue to hopefully get these coming out at least once a week over the next few months as well, because there's still so many stories to tell in Siege. But I've been Gibson. Korey, you've been great, as awesome as always. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.